All right, everybody. Today we're doing circles, and we're doing it through the lens of conic sections. So let's jump straight into it. A circle is a set of all points, x and y coordinates, in a plane that are equidistant, which means equal distance, from a fixed point called the center of a circle. The distance between the center and any point on the circle is called the radius. So we have an equation, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. In the equation, you notice that the h and the k are negative, and the center reports them as positive. So what that means is you are going to flip the signs of h and k. So if I have x minus 2 squared, that means h is positive 2. If I have x plus 2 squared, that means h is negative 2. The other thing that you'll notice is that in the equation, r is squared, but the radius is just r, which means whatever your equation equals to, whatever number they give you, you're going to square root that to get radius. Or if they give you radius, you're going to have to square it to put it in the equation. So here's our first example. They want us to graph the equation, and they also want us to identify the center and radius of the circle. So we have x squared plus y squared equals 36. You'll notice from the equation that the h and the k are missing. When it's missing, it's 0. So your h and your k values will be 0 and 0, which means the center is the point 0, 0. So let's graph that. There it is. Now let's find the radius. It equals 36, so 36 is r squared. So if I want the radius r, I'm going to take the square root of 36. So radius equals square root of 36, which is equal to 6. So what I'm going to do with that, in order to graph my circle, I'm going to go 6 units up, 6 units down, 6 units to the left, and 6 units to the right. Now the only thing left for me to do is to connect the green dots in as best as a circle as I can. I have a computer, so that gives me a perfect circle. So there you go, draw your circle. Now on this second one, I want you to give it a try. We'll put the equation up for you. And I want to see if you can graph this on your own. So ready, set, pause. All right, hopefully you've graphed it. Let's take a look at the center first. Now we actually have something in there. We have x minus 2. So that looks awfully like x minus h. So that means h is 2. There's nothing there with the y, so that means k is 0. So my center is 2, 0. So let's put that on the graph. There it is. Now our radius, we're going to get from that 49. Radius is going to be equal to the square root of 49, which is 7. So on my graph, I'm going to count from the center, up 7, down 7, left 7, right 7. Now what this does is it gives me 4 points as a reference, so I can now draw my circle. And let's draw the circle. All right. That's our graph. On to the next example. For a third example, we have x minus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 4. So I'm going to put the equation up for you again and see if you can graph and identify the center and radius. Ready, set, pause. All right, hopefully you've done it. Let's see here. We have x minus 5, which looks like x minus h, so that means h is 5. We have y minus 3, which looks like y minus k, so that means k is 3. And it all equals 4. So that means that r squared is 4. So what does that do for our center? Our center is at 5, 3. Let's graph it. Our radius is the square root of 4, which is 2. So from the center, we're going to go up 2, down 2, left 2, and right 2. All we have to do is connect the dots, and we are done. Here's our fourth example. We have x plus 2 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals 8. So I'm going to give you a moment, and here's a hint as you try to do this problem. Use the decimal form of the square root. This is not a perfect square, so just use the decimal form. All right, ready, set, pause. All right, let's see if you got it right. X plus 2 means h is negative 2. Remember, you switch the sign. Y plus 5 means k is negative 5. So our center is negative 2, negative 5. Now our radius r is going to be the square root of 8. Now I told you guys to use the decimal. It is approximately 2.8. I'm not going to go any more accurately than that because I'm really using it to plot something on the graph. And 1 decimal point is accurate enough if you're trying to just plot on a graph. So as far as our graph goes, we're going to go from that red center point and go up 2.8, down 2.8, left 2.8, and right 2.8. And what you'll notice with my dots, I've kind of approximated it. So it's almost 3 squares in each direction. After that, you just connect the green dots and you have your circle. All right, here's number 5. Now, in number 5, they don't want us to graph it, so it's a little bit less work. So I'll put the equation up for you, and you go ahead and try it on your own. Ready, set, pause. All right, so if you tried it on your own, then you've noticed that there's no h there, so h is 0. And then we have y minus 4 squared, which means k is positive 4. So my center should be 0, 4. It equals 19, so 19 is not the radius. The square root of 19 is the radius. So you could probably leave your answer either as square root of 19, or if you want to approximate it as a decimal, I put 4.36. Number 6 says to write the standard form of the equation of the circle with the radius 5 root 2 and whose center is at the origin. See if you can figure that out. Press pause and then I'll give you the answer. Ready, set, pause. All right, let's see if you got it. Now the first thing I'm going to say is that if the center is at the origin, that means the center is at 0, 0. So that means we're going to have x minus 0 squared, y minus 0 squared. The radius is 5 root 2. But you don't just leave it like that because the radius r has to be squared in the equation. So you're going to square that 5 root 2. So x minus 0 is just x, so that gives me x squared. And y minus 0 is just y, so that gives me y squared. And then you can put 5 root 2 squared in the calculator, but here's how you do it by hand. 5 squared is 25, root 2 squared is 2, so 25 times 2 is 50. So you have x squared plus y squared equals 50. Write the standard form of the equation of the circle with the radius of 11 units whose center is at -8 and 4. So don't forget to flip those signs and don't forget to square your radius. Go ahead and give it a try. Ready, set, pause. All right, if you gave this a try, then you should have x plus 8 squared, because it's like saying x minus -8, which would be x plus 8. Y minus k would be y minus 4. And then the 11 is just squared. And the only thing left for me to do is square that 11. I'm done with the question. Number 8, write the standard form of the equation of a circle that passes through the point 4, -1, and whose center is at 1, 5. So what we're going to do is, it's easier to do this if you graph it first. So let's graph the center. Well, let's graph the point. The point is 4, -1. That's what's in green. The center is 1, 5. And so that's the red point. Now, that green dot, although it seems like a random point, is a point on the circle. So I can actually already see what my circle looks like. And remember, from the definition of the circle, the distance from the center to a point on the circle is the radius. So that means that that blue line is the radius. All right. Now, if we can find the length of that blue line, we can get the equation. So let's keep in mind that the radius will be the distance between those 2 points, and the distance formula is change in x squared plus change in y squared, all square rooted. So go ahead, see if you can figure it out from there. And don't worry if you don't understand, I got the answer coming up for you. Ready, set, pause. All right, let's see if you figured this out. Now, delta in math and in physics means final minus initial. So if you take a look at the x's, final would be 4 and initial would be 1 for that center point. So what we end up with is 4 minus 1 squared. Now in the y direction, final is -1 and initial is 5. So we have -1 minus 5 squared. Now let's say you didn't decide which one was final and which one is initial. If you have it the reverse way, it would also be correct. For example, let's say I called my center the final point. Then I would have 1 minus 4 is -3. Well, both 4 minus 1, which is 3, and 1 minus 4, which is -3, if you square both of those, you still get 9. So it doesn't matter which one you call final and which one you call initial. Same thing with the y direction. If I did 5 minus -1, that would be like saying 5 plus 1, which is 6. So whether I'm squaring -6 or +6, I still get 36. Either way, our radius is the square root of 45. Now I'm not going to simplify that, just because when I try to get the equation, I'm going to square it, and that square root will cancel out anyway. So let's look at what we have. We have x minus 1, because 1 is h, y minus 5, because 5 is k, equals the square root of 45, which is r, squared. When we simplify this, we just change the root 45 squared to 45, and we have the answer. So that's all for today. If you have any questions, please let me know.